Gang Territory, Chapter 6, A Hammer, a Nail, and a Bamboo Stick. "I work Saturday mornings," said my aunt at breakfast. "I get back at 1 o'clock. Before then, I want you to have dug over the patch next to the garden shed. Don't just bury the leaves. Be sure you get them all out and throw them on the compost." "Yes, Aunt," I said. I had another idea rather than digging in mind, for this morning there was no school. But digging the garden was not incompatible with my project. "Don't forget that after dinner you're going to meet the Rumbles. Roy Rumble's a nice boy. I want you to get on with him." "Yes, Aunt," I replied. I just hoped she was right about his being a nice boy. She set off for the office on her bicycle, and I went down to the shed at the bottom of the garden to start work. I took with me a large lemonade bottle full of water. Between the wooden shed and the wire strand fence at the end of the garden was a gap of about 3 feet. Against the fence on the other side stood a low hen house with an enclosure. A few hens were scratching and softly clucking in it. I went into the space between the shed and the hen house and looked around. It was just as I had thought. In there I couldn't be seen except by somebody immediately behind me in my aunt's garden. I opened the door of the shed, went in, and found a hammer, a nail, and a bamboo stick. I went back into the gap, took the piece of string with a knot in it out of my pocket, measured 2 and a bit times its length up the wall of the shed, and drove in a nail. I balanced the bamboo stick horizontally between the nail and the wire of the chicken enclosure. I could walk underneath it with a bit to spare. I eyed my handiwork critically. Yes, it looked about the right height. I stood back at what I estimated to be a suitable distance, scratched a mark on the ground with my toe, undid my trousers, and let fly a jet at the bamboo. The first squirt reached nearly up to it, but what followed was well underneath. I stopped squirting to conserve ammunition, did up my trousers, and took a long swig at the lemonade bottle. "It'll have to be better than that," I said to myself as I went back into the shed to fetch out a spade. "I need to increase the pressure. But how?" I set to work digging in a pensive mood, carefully lifting out the weeds and tossing them into the barrow. After about 20 minutes, I became aware that my bladder was becoming full. I went on digging. Another 10 minutes, and the increasing pressure started to become uncomfortable. I went on digging. 5 minutes later, I was literally bursting. "Right," I muttered. "Time for another go." This time, the first impulse just touched the bamboo, but subsequent ones fell off somewhat. I squeezed the jet shut with my fingers, waited a moment, then let fly once more. Again, the first impulse touched the mark, only to fall off immediately. "It's the first instant that does it," I said to myself. "After that, there's not enough pressure. Can I keep up that first instant's pressure by timing the squeezes correctly? Even so, it's still not over the top." I did up my trousers again, took another long swig at the bottle, and sat down on the step of the shed to think. After a moment, I went back to the kitchen to refill the bottle from the tap. Then I resumed digging. 10 minutes later, I felt it was time for the next attempt at the height record. Sticking the spade into the ground, as I had seen Mr. Pierce do, I went back to my practice ground. This time, I gave a series of short, sharp spurts rapidly, one after the other. The first 2 just topped the bamboo. The next 2 splashed against it. Then they began to pass under it, lower and lower. I stopped shooting. "What you a-doing?" came suddenly a small girl's voice from the direction of the hen house on the other side of the fence. I hurriedly turned my back to it, did up my trousers, and spun round to see who had spoken. There was nobody to be seen. "Where are you?" I said. "I'm in here," came the voice, "in the hen house. I can see you through a knot-hole. What you a doing?" "What I'm doing is none of your business. What do you think you're doing, spying on me?" "I'm not a spying, just watching. I've been a-watching all morning, and you're acting peculiar. So, what you a-doing?" "You've been in the hen-house all this time?" I asked incredulously. "No, I can see you from my window too." I looked up at the house about 40 yards from where I was standing. "You're lying. Nobody can see into this space from the windows of your house." "From my window I can," came the gleeful contradiction. "My window's in the attic." I glanced up again at the house, and sure enough, let into the roof was a very small skylight. I'd never thought that anyone could have a room immediately under the roof. "Well, that's not a reason for spying on me." "I weren't doing no spying. I just seed you. You're new, ain't you? What's your name?" I gave her my name. "What's yours?" "Jenno." "Jenno what?" "No, not Jenno what," she giggled. "Jenno Bryce." "There's a Bryce in my class, Stanley Bryce." "Yeah, he's my brother. Don't you go a-telling him I've been talking with you. He'd tan me." "I won't tell him if you don't tell him what you've seen this morning." "I won't tell him," she said earnestly. "I'm not allowed to talk with the Lyons Avenue lot. He'd skin me if he knew I'd been a-fraternising with one of 'em." I was opening my mouth to protest that I wasn't a member of any kind of lot, when she said anxiously, "Look, I got to go. I told me mum I'd come and see if there was any eggs. Stay any longer and she'll think I'm perched here waiting for 'em to lay." She gave another giggle and then added, "If I were you, I'd stand about a foot further off." I was shocked. "What do you know about it? You're a girl." I know more than what you think," she giggled. "From here I can see you from the side." I heard some muffled thumps from the hen house, and I moved quickly to one side of it so that I might see what she looked like. All I got was a glimpse of the back of a slight figure in a flowered summer dress disappearing in a flash through her back door. I returned thoughtfully to my practice ground. "A foot further off was what she said," I muttered. I placed myself 12 inches back from my scratched mark, made a second scratch, and looked apprehensively up towards the little window in the roof. Then I shrugged. So what? She's already seen everything. I unbuttoned my trousers, took a deep breath, then let fly. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 spurts went sailing blithely over the bamboo. 6, 7. The bamboo trembled as it was hit. 8, 9, just underneath. I let my breath out with a whoosh of relief. Then I couldn't contain myself. I turned round and round in a circle, painting a joyous wavery spiral in the dirt. I had peed over the top. Having adjusted my dress, as the quaint notices in the public gents express it, I always thought this bizarre, because it's the ladies who wear dresses. I put my left heel on the second scratch mark, my right heel against the toe of my left shoe, then the heel of my left foot against my right toe, and so on, up to the vertical from the bamboo stick. It was exactly 8 of my feet. Was the boys' privy at school sufficiently wide to get that distance back from the wall? I wasn't sure.